congratulations with a West Side Story and a short. So tell me about how this came about.
No, I co-wrote it with my filmmaker Aditya Joshi. We co-wrote it together, co-produced. He directed it, and then I starred in it. And then Adrian is our amazing producer that we also brought on to a West Side Story short film, and it kind of just started through an idea between me and Aditya Joshi. I'm an actor, Latina actor, and I was just very unsatisfied with the roles I was getting as an actress, the stories I was seeing for my community. I'm Puerto Rican as well, and that's how it kind of all started to come together, and we started building a team together, and everything kind of fell into place from there. So yeah, that's how kind of we got it started.
How the ongoing reference says, do people notice things?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell me about the emphasizing on that in the film?
Yeah, well, I feel, I mean, I don't know how you feel, Adrian, but sometimes I think with the work I see currently of Latinos, there's little things here and there that I'm like, or my sister and I were like, oh, what's that dialect, or what's that reference, or why does a girl randomly break into Spanish in the middle of a sentence and contextually it makes no sense. And those are the things that we notice that maybe someone who is not involved in the culture does not notice and doesn't see. And that's fine because that's not what they're aware of. And that's something that we reference in this as well. So when people are like, is everyone really going to notice that it's the dark blue? Is anyone really going to notice that the skirts aren't the skirts? Puerto Ricans will,
Yeah.
Latinos will, and they do. And yeah, if you want to add anything to that, Adrian.
Yeah, I think it's a question of, when making a story, right? I think we need to ask ourselves, like, who's the audience, right? Who's the audience that we're serving, telling this story? And I think what's so special about a West Side Story is that it's a film and story made of, for, and by the community, right? A lot of us are based in New York, a local New York team. The majority of the team are Latine filmmakers and indie filmmakers, right? So we grapple with this question, and I think predominantly in a film industry that is predominantly white, right? We do have that challenge of non-people of color telling Latine or people of color stories, right? So it's something that we have to grapple with as Latine artists, right? That we don't want to lessen the aspects of our culture for a specific audience. So I think it's just such an important question that this film asks, right? And I think it stays true to the way that we identify is that this is a film that is of, for, and by the Latine community, and right, and we wanted to honor it as much as we can. And the challenges that the character faces, Carolina, are the real challenges that we also face in our real life in everyday conversations, being Latine artists in this homogeneous film industry.
But why shape it around a West Side Story? It could have been
Oh,
any film based, but based on the storyline and a theater setup.
sure. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm Puerto Rican, so initially it was just my initial experience as a theater director, consistently being asked, what would my version of West Side Story be? And I was doing applications, I want to say around the same time last year, and I was like, I don't think I could do a version of West Side Story that's not commenting on West Side Story because of my experience as a Puerto Rican in the diaspora, in the world I live in and what I grew up around. You know, my father loves West Side Story. He cried when he saw it in theaters for the first time. I mean, he saw himself and his people for the first time on the big screen. It was a monumental moment for him. And then my little sister, who was born and raised in Puerto Rico, never watched it, doesn't get it, doesn't she watched it and she was like, okay, get cute, you know? And I'm like, wow, there's this whole other world in conversation with West Side Story, and yet Puerto Ricans are just genuinely associated with just West Side Story or a remake of West Side Story. And I'm like, that's okay, but like there's this whole other conversation happening, and I wanted to show that. And Puerto Ricans are most generally associated in the zeitgeist of American media with that being our iconic film, but it wasn't made by us. And so I wanted to highlight that conversation, and whatever comes from that. But let's keep pushing the dialogue forward. So that's why, West Side Story was the one. And then I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but yeah.
No, that was beautifully said.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned your dad enjoying watching the West Side Story, was that the original?
I mean, both. My dad's also a very emotional man, but the original one that came out was the one that he saw in theaters with Rita Moreno, and he was like, wow, like the first time he saw himself in theaters. Yeah.
Oh, so I can't help but be curious, only because it was also referenced about the accents in your
Mhm.
short. How did you feel about the accents in the remake of A West Side Story?
It's funny because my parents and my family also had like varying reactions to all of that. My father was like, it was great. It was because also they speak a lot in English. There's, I think, if I remember correctly, in the remake, there is Spanish, but most of it is in English. So when you have that, it's harder to hear a dialect when it's a Latino speaking in English than when they're speaking in Spanish. But I feel like, I mean, they were Latinos. They are Latino actors. They have a dialect. They have an acento. But if I was to say, es el acento boricua. No, it wasn't porque yo sé el acento boricua. And my sister was like, pero ese no es mi acento, ese no es el acento de nosotros, you know? And, I think they did a beautiful job. The actors are incredible. I mean, I also cried during the remake. I thought it was beautiful performances. But the accents, they weren't of our people. Yeah.
Adrian,
Yeah.
do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just, from a producer's perspective, we have a responsibility to tell the story authentically, and who are the people that we can bring on our piece to set the story up for success in a genuine and authentic way, right? So, like, if you have an actor, despite them being Latine, in West Side Story, right? What are the tools we can give them for that? A dialect coach, right? Bring somebody Puerto Rican who has that expertise, right, to honor the culture and the community and story that you're telling.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Moving on from the accents, tell me about the theater setup. I mean, people, I like theater. You mentioned you're based in New York and the theater world. Does it make it like take away pressure on getting to film in a set like that?
I think what's beautiful also of Aditya and myself is that we are also theater makers, and so we're able to bring our theater techniques and the way we build community with theater into the film process. So there was actually a very nice crossover. And I think that also came to terms in regards to the selection of our production team, right? Our amazing costume designer Rodrigo Munoz, and also our scenic and art director Gerardo Sanchez Diaz. They're both theater makers, right? So they're able to bring in their expertise to the film world. Same thing with our actors. Like Anna, most of our actors are theater actors that were
Yeah,
in
yeah,
in the short, right? So we were able to bring the theater community and uplift each other into a film context, and then hire expert filmmakers like our brilliant DP, Joshua Echevarria, to bring their level of technical expertise to tell this story. We were blessed to have a partnership with the Brooklyn Music School,
Mhm.
who generously were our fiscal sponsor. So any funding that was given to the film was tax deductible, and we were also allowed to keep the space and use the space for free, that beautiful theater space.
Yeah,
So, us being theater makers, we're scrappy, we're hungry, we know how to work within smaller budgets. And it actually also forces us to be more creative in our solutions, right? So those are
yeah.
all the things we brought with us in our toolkit as we produce this film.
Another reference is about saying that the film is for the grandmas.
Hmm.
Was very cute. Can you talk a little bit about that and the grandma part? I mean, we can't not talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so the show within the show, the version that Carolina is putting on, she's trying to put on an authentic version of West Side Story. She's doing the opening number is starting in Puerto Rico, and then when she's talking about marketing the film, the play within the play, um, she say it's for our grandmothers, it's for our abuelas. Because at the end of the day, our short, it's kind of meta. My short is also for my grandmother. My short is a love letter for like the theater makers when we're out in New York making our art. At the end of the day, who are we making our art for? Especially Latinos, when we're trying to bring our culture and our people to the stage. I'm making it for mine, for my abuela, for my sister, for my mom, for my people, so that, you know, my abuela didn't really get to travel the world and see a lot of things. She mostly saw Castañer, Puerto Rico, but in kind of my own way, I'm allowing her to see the world and for the world to see her with this piece. And that's kind of, I think, the root of what what that came from. And we're all, we're representing our families and our people with our work.
I love that. That was cute. Unfortunately, I did not have the experience of a grandma, of an abuela, but
That's
it makes me jealous.
it's okay. Abuelas, we all have different versions of like women that are like close to us that can feel like home. They don't have to be our biological abuela.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for your time. Congratulations with A West Side Story.